Ladies and gentlemen, a recent phenomena that has rejoined the social media universe is something called plot holes. Now, this is not a new thing, but it seems to be the last couple of years because of the multitude of shows on Netflix and the different streaming channels. Critics talk about plot holes more often. But back in the day, in the 1970s, when Night Gallery was very popular and other dramatic anthologies, people were catching on about the problem with plot holes. Now, this is one episode. It doesn't take away from the episode because it's well put together, but the plot holes are so distinct, like not recognizing a person for who he is kind of takes 1/2 star away from the show. Now, this is called Tell David. Now, in this one, Sandra Dee gets lost in a storm and winds up at the home of her son, 20 years in the future. Now, the teleplay was by Gerald Sanford with the story by Penelope Wallace, directed by the great Jeff Corey. Very seamless direction here. Sandra Dee plays Ann Bolt. Jared Martin, a very underrated actor, is Tony Bolt. David Blessington. Jenny Sullivan as Pat Blessington, Jean Choutin as Jane Blessington, Francois Regeria as Yvonne, Anne Randall as Julie, and Chris Patrick as David Bolt. Now, with this one, Anne is driving her station wagon one night through a strong thunderstorm and gets lost. She stops at a house to ask to use the phone and is warmly greeted by Pat Blessington and Jenny Sullivan, who invites her in. Now, in 1972, after the Manson case, I don't think any people would be as easygoing as this person is, but this is the first plot hole. The house has futuristic elements to it, such as a one-way security window. They can see out, but you can't see in. Closed-circuit TV for security and a FaceTime-like telephone she uses to try to call her husband, which doesn't go through. It's also GPS style. They also have a MapQuest or Google's Map-like device to show her the route from their house to hers. Pat's husband, David, Jared Martin, suggests that Anne return to visit, and she agrees that she'd like to do so. When Anne returns home, not far away, she notices that everything is dry, no rainstorm. Upon entering her house, there is a masked man, but it's her husband, Tony, making some weirdly dramatic point about her returning late and not calling. He says the phone never rang, despite her attempt to call from the Blessington's house. They then get into a fight, and we get a none too subtle visual cue from director Jeff Corey that Tony, also played by Jared Martin, may be having an affair with their nanny. So the only difference between these two characters is a mustache. Now, when Anne visits the Blessingtons again, though there's apparently no weirdness getting to her home in the future in calm weather, another plot hole, Anne confesses her feelings of jealousy possibly seeing another woman, and David warns her against the green-eyed monster of jealousy, saying he still bears the scar from his 4th birthday when he cut his thumb the day his own jealous mother killed his father, then took her own life. He shows her a picture of his mother and tells her he does not blame her. He was raised by a relative of his father, a woman whose family name was Blessington. He warns Anne not to succumb to her feelings of jealousy, as it could lead to tragedy. In the next scene, Anne's son, about 4, has cut his thumb while cutting the birthday cake. The nanny was there, but she is furious at her husband for being absent and suspecting he was seeing a woman. He says he was, but the woman was his cousin who was in town, named Jane Blessington. These coincidences drive Anne to a breakdown, and while she is hospitalized, she's visited by Jane and Anne and ask her to take care of her son should that become necessary. She has put together the pieces and believes that David Blessington is her own son David, 20 years in the future. Only her would not catch on at this point in the show, trying to warn her of her unfortunate destiny. Still, she does not believe she will follow in this path. She is adamant that she won't kill her husband and then herself. Back home, to finally confirm her suspicions, she notices the box of cigarettes that Blessington gave her bears the words "made in 1989" on the label. Now, at the time, this episode is from 1971. One night she's awakened and comes downstairs to find her husband in a passionate embrace with the nanny. She finds the gun and shoots him. Later in prison, Jane visits Anne and is there to arrange legal representation for her. In a strong final scene, one of her best as an actress, Sandra Dee gives a good performance as of a sort of euphoric trance, calm and relieved in the knowledge that her son will grow up well. I know he's going to forgive me. You see, he kept my picture. He said it was very beautiful. Now, uneven to many, including by David Jewell's blogspot, it has as many strengths. Now, Jewell calls it a near miss, and I think for what it is, it's just, it's a horror comic come to life. But what I can't understand, why she would not recognize David as her son, even though David looks almost exactly like her husband. There's a commonality. Like in my family, all the relatives of my grandmother look an awful lot alike, be their kids or grandkids, because there's like what they call a visual identity presence. But Sandra Dee was a very underrated actress and still is. Now she appears in the third season episode Spectre and Tap Shoes, but this one she's quite good. But Jared Martin, although he's a very handsome actor, you probably needed a stronger actor to play the two David characters, as we say. But he's calm in the eyes, very handsome young man. My mother always said Jared Martin, if he had a brain, he'd be a much better actor, and I tend to agree. But the idea is, if you're a woman, you get the episode. If you're a man, you don't get the episode. It comes off as a Harlequin romance gone bad in Night Gallery, and that's what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's our latest on our Season 2 podcast on Night Gallery. Please let us know what you think with a like, comment, or subscribe. And don't forget the idea about these type of plots. You have to basically leave your brain at the door. It may be obvious, but just go for the ride and see the good acting and all that. Because in Night Gallery, if you didn't like the first segment, wait for the second segment. If you didn't like the second segment, you had the third segment. And like in most of the episodes, it was 2.5 to 3 stars for the whole episode. That's the way it goes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget requests are always appreciated and always highly considered. Have a good one. Bye.